Hi, everyone. Welcome to Brain Talks. I'm Deborah Kan, founder of Being Patient. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that I know a lot of people have trouble over, and that is the use of technology with an elderly parent, especially one suffering from dementia. That is always a tricky point of people's relationship. And I'm pleased to say we have an expert, Jack York, who is the president and founder of a company appropriately named It's Never Too Late. Hi, Jack, and thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Okay, so to start with, I've had that experience. My mom actually, I don't think can use her iPhone anymore. It's just too complicated. There's too many layers to her phone. And what we were talking about earlier is, interestingly enough, when you are given a cognitive test, there's always a clock in that test. And the reason for that is because a clock has many layers to it. And when somebody is having cognitive impairment, that becomes more difficult to articulate on paper. So I think of that much like a smartphone, where there's so many different layers to get into the phone. So tell me, let's start first with what are some of the problems elderly people have with dealing with technology?
Yeah, and it's having done this for 20 years now. It's so hard to generalize anything because everybody has kind of their own path that they go to. I think the first thing is, and it's funny because it reminds me of just my own experience when I first, I forget how many years ago it was, probably 40 years ago for me. I'm almost 60, but I never really embraced technology until it was a risk reward, till the reward was worth it to me. And my father died and I had to sort out a bunch of financial stuff. And so all of a sudden it was worth it to me to learn Excel, and so it had a reason. A lot of times I think that people they come up with reasons why people should want to do stuff for older adults, as opposed to really kind of getting a sense of what matters in their life. To so many people, it's grandkids. And so and the point of all this is that it's no matter where you start, all the layering, all the difficulty, a person needs to really be motivated. You know what? I want to get to the other end of this. And if they want to get to the other end of it, there's ways and there's tools to do it. And that's I was telling you before, that it's certainly been our experience over the years that a lot of times the children can be the worst teachers for their parents, because there's just so many dynamics that go into, okay, who's the parent here and who's not. So it's certainly been our experience over the years that a lot of times either people that are neutral or people that are their peers are much better at kind of walking people through that whole, the whole treadmill of having to work its way through technology. But it's just hard to generalize, because
well, actually in our family we've designated my brother-in-law for that job, because my sister and I are not good at that, like you say. But most people, I think, want their parent or their loved one, especially if they're a long distance caregiver, right? It's a connection, right, to stay in touch. So what is the best way? I mean, I had a friend who basically took an iPad and stripped it of everything except for the one video function. And that was the way for a long time her mom was still able to do that. In fact, it was quite sweet because she was living overseas and her mom was in Holland, and her mom actually at some point thought that she was still living there because she would see her every day.
Right.
You can see the benefits.
Yeah, well, and it's we've all grown up through incremental, just fascinating improvements in technology, and it kind of an incremental, 1 month it's this, 1 month it's that. For someone in their mid-90s that has never seen something like Google Earth, it's transformational to go look at that the farm that you grew up in, or the church that you used to go to. So I think that, I just think that, our work as It's Never Too Late is frankly not as much with that one individual on their own. I mean, I can give you all kinds of answers that are more anecdotal. I think what I can speak a little bit more definitively about is really the family member that is going through their mom or dad in some kind of a community where their mom or dad is dealing with different levels of cognitive decline. And I think that, I guess my message to, it sounds like that's a lot of the folks that are paying attention to your work. And my message to convey to those people is demand that the community that mom or dad is going to has access to technology, and they have people, and it's a core of what they do. There's no reason that anybody should not have the right to be able to Skype with the grandkids, or to be able to connect to their own music, or to be able to connect to their own spirituality. And so what we've spent, frankly, 20 years doing is try to make that whole process as easy as possible, both for the person themselves, but oftentimes it is for the caregiver, either a therapy staff, either a speech, occupational, or physical therapist, or a rec therapist, an activity director. But just through simple icons and all kinds of content that you're able, it has nothing to do with aging. It's got nothing to do with dementia. We all have a thirst to be connected to things that are meaningful. And you have to strip through the layers of where people are cognitively to be able to get to it. But the cool thing is that once you find that connection, you can constantly get the person back there just by touching a couple of icons. So that, I'm trying to talk more generically than about our product, but I think that's what it took us a lot of years to figure out, is that simplicity is much more important than coolness.
Absolutely. And also, you don't want the person to feel frustrated, because then they're not going to want to do that, right? So tell us a little bit about It's Never Too Late. How did you develop the content, and what's on your platform?
Well, let's see. Do you want me to give like the truth, or kind of like I can make it sound like I planned everything out?
We want the truth.
The whole concept started. A really good friend of mine, Leslie Sweeney, in Southern California. We've been lifelong friends, her and her husband and I. And I was living the good life in the Silicon Valley, and that, as is the case with most people, if you're not dealing with it with your parents, you just kind of, you're driving by the nursing home, you're driving by the assisted living community. It's just not that you're being cruel, it's just not a part of your life. And Leslie lived very close to an assisted living community, and she just saw how isolated a lot of the residents were. And so she talked me into making a donation, and she worked with the residents and just taking a standard computer off the shelf. And this is 1998. It's a long time ago, but we both were just intrigued by how life-changing it was for a very small number of residents, because most of them couldn't figure it out. And again, technology was a lot different back then, but there was physical issues to overcome, there was cognitive issues to overcome. And I was moving in on 40, and I think you've had a similar situation where you want to feel like you're doing something in your life that has some kind of meaning to it. And so my nickname, professionally and personally, has always been Ready, Fire, Aim. So I just kind of jumped off a cliff with Leslie and my brother Tom, who unfortunately died about 15 years ago. But we didn't know what the heck we were doing, and we just said there's got to be a better way to treat these people are welders and doctors and lawyers and teachers, and they're treated like 10-year-olds in these communities. There's got to be a better way to do that. And I think that because we didn't know anything, we didn't know any better, we weren't afraid to try anything. In retrospect, it was really advantageous to us, because we didn't have 10 years of this is why we do it this way, or we weren't sucked into the whole kind of realities of healthcare. So to answer your question, kind of the whole journey of our content and the whole experience 100% driven by our customers, because they would tell us what worked and what didn't work. And obviously there's been, a myriad of technology enhancements and changes over the years that have allowed us to kind of produce what we do now, which is just a very robust content experience that addresses all level of cognition.
So when you were building this, what did you learn about that interaction with elderly people? And I'm assuming a lot of those people who were in homes were suffering from dementia. Is that right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I was clueless to the whole. I mean, I've enjoyed I've had so many people throughout the last 2 decades that have really been such mentors to me of really educating to me. But when we started, it was, we kind of knew a little bit of what dementia was, but not a whole lot. What, really, to answer that question, what the most striking thing to me was of what I learned the first 2 or 3 years is how people weren't that different. I went into it thinking there's this whole other, like a whole other different mindset at 85 than me at 40 at the time. And what I've just, as I think I said a little bit earlier, just what I've come to learn over the years is just we all are thirsty to stay relevant. And you're not relevant by being thrown together with 20 other people in front of a television to watch a Jerry Springer show. I mean, the community. I mean, if I really look at the probably the most transformational difference for me in the last 20 years in terms of the work that we do, it's the importance of how the staff, oftentimes in conjunction with the family, how the staff can work to really get a sense of who the person is, wherever they are cognitively. And when you understand who that person is, were they a farmer, or are they a farmer? Are they a fighter, a jet pilot? Or, there's all these little nuances that then there's enough content out there to be able to make it relevant for anybody. But then you want to, once you find the right content, you want to make it easy to go back to get to it without having to do that searching again. So it really, but really, if I really look at it, it's how just the lack of difference that I thought people had when I went into it, than what it turned out to be. You just had to deal with their physical and their cognitive realities.
Okay, so you mentioned Google Earth before, but what does it look like? I wish we had the ability to show people right now, but what does that look like on the platform?
Yeah, sure. For what we do, and again, a lot of the work that we do is in group environments, in assisted living communities, in nursing homes, in memory care communities, and also in some independent and adult day and such. But it's curated content that you're able to access very intuitively through a layering of icons. So if you want to you touch a travel icon and you hit 2 or 3 icons and you're in Germany, or if you want to have a spiritual content, you can be going in the middle of a Jewish service just by. And so we have all these thousands of components of content, and then when you really put that up against that person, and then you find out, hey, you know what? That one person, of the 4,000 pieces of content we have, that person cares about 12 of those things, and make it really easy for the staff and the family remotely to be able to get those 12 things there. And one of the joys of the later stage dementia, and I say joy, so it may come across the wrong way, but I say it so meaningfully for me, is that person doesn't need a new piece of content every day. If you like for myself, my daughter is a phenomenal young musician in Southern California. She won the 2018 a cappella vocalist of the year in the entire country. I can watch her singing every single day. But if dementia kicks into my life and I wind up in a place where I struggle, get me to her singing, and I don't care where I am. I think I will be grounded by that. And so I just think it's a matter of taking all of this content, curate it so it's easy to access, and then make it really easy to get to what matters to that person. So it's hard to.
So do you think that it's necessary though that somebody is there to help? Because that's one of the problems we struggle with. Like even, my mom getting into her emails anymore, it's an impossible task. And if someone wasn't there guiding her through, I don't think she could do it. So
yeah, again, it's very hard to generalize. It just depends on where people were. I think that we love the promise of voice. I look when you look. I mean, we are happy to sell a tablet devices that are for individuals, but when I think about this 5 years from now, I don't think it's going to be a 94-year-old with early to mid-stage dementia tapping away on a little tablet. It's going to be voice and different kinds of interfaces and such. So I think that it's just hard to generalize because a lot of people we work with, I mean, just to be transparent, a lot of our work is done in memory care communities, in AL communities where there is mid to late stage dementia. A lot of people that really are never going to easily be able to independently do things like email, but a lot of those people, they are able to recognize their picture or something that matters to them, and you can have content right behind their picture that's relevant to them. And it could be a granddaughter singing, it could be Frank Sinatra song, it could be a priest saying the rosary, it could be a virtual trip to Paris that they went on 40 years ago. There's no limits to what the content might be, but I think it's important to frame it to not confuse people with too many options, too many choices. The early, more folks on the early stage, I mean, it's just, again, I just keep saying the same thing, that it's hard to generalize because some people they're able to whip their way through it, and some people are consistently confused by it. I just think, I really like some of the FaceTime type products and WhatsApp and things that are kind of 1 and 2 clip ways to get to things without having to put in a myriad of passwords and such. So again, it's a lot of individual preferences.
So one of the questions that we have coming in is asking, like, how do you teach people, especially with dementia, that technology is not something to be feared? How do you give them that confidence?
Again, I'll answer from kind of a senior living community standpoint. We start a project, and we have, we're in almost 3,000 communities. We have a lot of experience in doing this work. The goal isn't to, I mean, there's kind of 2 things we try to take on. But the first one is that the goal isn't to get everybody using it right away. It's within a community, who are the residents that are most likely to be engaged, and you get them connected to the grandkids. The grandkids are like the secret sauce of this whole thing. And the crotchety guy that might say, I don't want this. I never needed this technology. All of a sudden, he sees his buddy that he has dinner with every night Skyping with that guy's granddaughter, and it's like, okay, wait a second. Maybe this is worth the pain to go through. So I think that a lot of it is the grandkids has been a big deal. And the second thing for us is to be, again, a lot of our work is staff led, and so much of the activity programming in communities, I think, is, it's very, it's I hate to say demeaning, because the people are doing such good work, but a lot of the programming can be just certainly not dignified to a generation that deserves better. So a lot of our work is really training the staff to integrate what we do into the core of what they're trying to do every day, whether it's virtual travel, whether it's spirituality. We love to, if it's a community that has a mix of residents, we love to see some of the more independent residents embrace what we're doing, and then work with the folks that are having some cognitive issues. We've had a lot of communities tell us that we're one of the few things where there has been some interaction between the independent residents and the folks more in some kind of in more of a cognitive decline place.
So to sum it up here, give us the top maybe 3 tips for the frustrated caregiver who wants to have their parent use more technology for those reasons, what is the best way? Like, what are the top 3 things they should know to kind of steer this journey?
And do you mean as far as is in the case you're looking at, is mom or dad living at home independently, or is mom or dad in a community? Or do you want me to answer a little bit for both?
Answer a little for both.
Okay, if it's mom or dad in the community, I would say get one of their peers or somebody else to help. I mean, again, that's a generalization. In some places it works. I just see so much frustration between family members trying to show mom or dad, and they just get burned out. Everybody gets burned out, and it's just in a lot of ways, it's not just technology, but that can get in the way. I just think that the peers, having your peers be mentors, has been so much more impactful than the kids trying to do it. And a lot of there's networks that get put together. If it's at libraries, at senior centers, there's a lot of places you can go and get all kinds of technology resources. The one thing I would say on the I think I alluded to this before, on the more if you're looking for a community for mom or dad, I think make tech, and we love it when people specifically say, hey, is it never too late in this community? I mean, that's awesome. But I mean, just more in general, it's, as a consumer, demand. I mean, if you're making a choice, make sure that technology is a part of the experience for where your mom or dad is living, even if they cognitively are not able to make that connection themselves. People get so caught up in the physical amenities of a building that I think oftentimes are meaningless. I think of my own parents both my parents have been gone for a long time, but if I was choosing a community for my mom or dad, it would be, how do you keep, I could care less what somebody's furniture look like. I would want to know, how do you keep dad connected to the Nebraska Cornhuskers? How do you keep mom able to say the rosary every day? All these things that are meaningful to them, that matters so much more than what does your china look like. And I just think as consumers, you should demand that that's a part of the experience, and then immerse yourself in it. And it really, it's amazing when the staff knows the nuances of your mom or dad. It's amazing the quality of care that can change. And those nuances can be anything like, she likes her left sock put on before her right sock. What seemingly insignificant things are huge. And so I just, when I see communities that really embrace our work, and just in a really tough situation where nobody really wanted to wind up there, you see joy and love and smiles through technology that more than I think anything else you can provide. And so obviously I'm biased, but man, I've seen it happen for
So Jack, is it's never too late, it's a B2B model, right? So you really only deal with caregiver facilities to
our model, over the next few years, we're clearly going to be, actually not over a few years, we are migrating to keep making our group product better, but put a lot of emphasis on an individual product that can be delivered in a lot of ways. But as is the case with everything we do, we get our customer input. We're not trying to say, here, you need this. And a lot of our customers are tiptoeing into home and community-based services. And we've got a great team put it together. Karen O'Hearn's our product roadmap, and she's always out getting customer feedback. So as the years go by, really, and as the months go by, we're going to be developing just a more and more robust product for an individual. But our sweet spot right now is totally transforming activity and therapy programming within the walls of a community.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jack York. Thanks for your time, and of course, for what you do. It's incredibly intriguing to think of connecting more people to their families, to their interests through technology. So thanks very much.
Yeah, and just one quick shout out. There's a couple guys that I know living with dementia that are mentors of mine that are smarter than a guy in particular, Mike Belleville. A guy is smart.
Mike, we know he's a friend of ours.
Yeah. You have people like that are just so inspirational and just love being a part of I don't know. We're like a 20-year-old startup, but we're just scratching the surface of what we can do. And I think that in a world that there's a lot to be, apprehensive about, I think technology, the engagement side of technology is a really, really cool thing. But thanks for having me on. This is great.
All right. Thanks, Jack.